Celina ISD's core principles of community, excellence, innovation, leadership, and stewardship guide our work and ground our decisions. As stewards of our community's tax dollars, our board and our district leadership seek innovative ways to maintain the level of excellence expected by our families. To maximize our local tax dollars, the Celina ISD Board of Trustees has called a voter approval tax rate election, otherwise known as a VATER, which is an election held to access additional funding available to school districts through the state's school funding formula. This VATER election will be held as part of the upcoming November 5th election. A VATER would provide an estimated $1.85 million annually as an additional funding source for Celina ISD for everyday operations. These funds will be utilized for employee salaries approved by the Celina ISD Board and address rising costs due to inflation, utilities, fuel, and insurance. This additional funding can be accessed without increasing the overall district tax rate. The overall district tax rate will decrease from last year, which will be the 6th year in a row Celina ISD has reduced its overall tax rate. Within the maintenance and operation budget are teacher and staff salaries, the hiring of teachers to maintain existing class sizes, academic programming, and safety and security additions. Revenue from a VATER would fund district actions to address teacher shortages and increase compensation for staff, including teachers, classroom aides, bus drivers, and our maintenance staff. Celina ISD continues to provide compensation increases each year, yet our compensation is below neighboring districts. In hiring, Celina ISD competes with neighboring districts for both new and veteran teachers in our area. The VATER funding will enable Celina ISD to continue providing police officers to our campuses as we continue to build new schools each year, while also addressing current school security and monitoring systems. The additional funding will also support the district's efforts to expand academic programs district-wide in the sciences, arts, advanced academics, and in the various career technology fields. Celina ISD offers many choices for students that support skills after graduation.
Texas school district tax rates consist of two parts: the maintenance and operations rate, also called the M&O rate, and the interest and sinking rate, also called the INS rate. The district's M&O funding pays for the district's daily operations, including salaries, utilities, and educational materials and resources. CISD's Board of Trustees has reduced the district's maintenance and operations tax rate by nearly 41 cents since 2019. Revenue from the INS tax rate pays the district's debt that finances bonds, which fund large investments and construction projects that have been approved by the community.
In August, the CISD Board proposed a VATER to be taken to voters that would increase the M&O tax rate just over 5 cents and an INS tax rate decrease of just over 5 cents. Combined, the M&O and INS total tax rate would be 1.2358 for the year 2024. If approved by voters, the VATER tax rate will result in an overall reduction from last year's total tax rate. With this voter approval tax rate election, CISD would generate $1.85 million in maintenance and operations revenue. Regardless of whether or not the proposed VATER is approved by the public, the overall tax rate for Celina ISD has already been approved by the Celina ISD Board at 1.2358 for the 24-25 school year. Again, this tax rate is a reduction of last year's tax rate, and this is the 6th year in a row that Celina ISD's overall tax rate is lower than the preceding year.
Here is the language you can expect to see on the ballot when you go to cast your vote. Ratifying the ad valorem tax rate of 1.2358 in Celina Independent School District for the current year, a rate that will result in an increase of 37.64% in maintenance and operations revenue for the district for the current year, as compared to the preceding year, which is an additional $10,539,090. A new state law requires very specific language on the ballot, and Celina ISD cannot alter the language in any way. Celina ISD is not asking voters to vote a specific way on this measure.
What voters will see on the ballot is only language about the increased revenue generated on the M&O side of the district tax rate. The language on the ballot could be confusing for voters. What's not stated in the ballot language is an explanation that the 37.64% increase is a comparison of the M&O revenue between 2023 and 2024. The taxable value of property within our district's boundaries has increased by over 29% since last year, with the addition of many commercial properties and an increase of home values in northern Collin County. In an effort to clarify the language on the ballot for our voters, CISD offers the following.
At the August 19th, 2024 board meeting, the CISD Board of Trustees reduced the district's overall maintenance and operations tax from last year's rate. This marks the 6th year in a row the district's overall tax rate has been decreased by the board. The district's M&O tax rate has been reduced by almost 41 cents since 2019, including an 18-cent reduction in 2023 due to a required M&O tax compression at the direction of the state. The state's public school funding formula has not increased since 2019.
CISD is responsible for covering any difference between our revenue and expenses in the district's M&O budget, including energy, insurance, fuel, and various resources related to the operations of our schools. The Vader proposal to add 5 cents back into the district's M&O portion of the tax rate would result in an overall tax rate that is still lower than last year's tax rate. Approval of this measure will add approximately $1.85 million in additional revenue in the district's M&O budget each year. These funds will be used for salaries for teachers and other support personnel, safety security enhancements, and academic course offerings. Please share this information with your family, friends, and neighbors. Early voting begins October 21st and goes through November 1st, and then Election Day is November 5th. Thank you for taking the time to watch this informational video about the upcoming Vader election. And go Bobcats.